All right. Well, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Dori Soukup, and with me today are two special guests. They are both attorneys and they are here to share with us the latest information you need to know regarding your employees, you, and the coronavirus. All the new laws that are coming out, and by the way, they are changing by the minute. So I just want to let everybody know that's on today that my team and I are totally committed to help you minimize the disruption that the coronavirus is causing to your business. And we are doing it through webinars and educational programs and bringing on expert interviews like this one to help you navigate through this temporary period. And I like to call it temporary because it is going to change. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. So I just want you to know that you want to stay informed of the latest and the greatest business strategies and expertise that we're doing. And you can find all that on inspirationmanagement.com. Right on the homepage, you'll see a plethora of different webinars and important information that we are providing you. So I'd like to start by first introducing my panel of experts here. I'm so excited and thank you so much for taking the time. I know we're all super busy and you guys are even busier than you normally are. So I love these two ladies. I consider them friends and colleagues. So Allyson Avila, she's from New York actually. Well, I was just teasing her about being the root of all the problems. No?
Root of all evil.
It's all their fault. And we have Christine Sensenig. She's from Florida. And now we're getting all the New Yorkers down here. And of course, myself, Dori. And the reason I wanted to really do this event with you is because I've been getting so many questions from people about not clear on what to do. They're very confused about the guidelines, and the guidelines are changing all the time. They really at a loss. They're not sure exactly what to do. Are they doing the right thing? They definitely need the income right now, and they're afraid to make some faux pas, if you will. So that's really why I wanted to invite both Chris and Allyson to help us navigate through this. So I came up with some topics that I would like to ask them, and plus I combined the questions that I was getting from everybody to see how we can help members of the community. And of course, we want to talk about the corona legislations and what's going on right now. What are some of your options? The Family First Act, what's going on with that. And then, of course, maybe spend some time talking about all the employment laws between paid time off. What do you do with unemployment, furloughs, employee pay? I mean, the questions are definitely endless. So I know between the two of them, we're going to shed some light on this and help you all get some of these questions answered. So I would like you to get to know them a little bit better. So Allyson, do you want to give us a little overview of your specialty and your expertise and share it with everyone?
Yeah, so hi everyone, thank you for joining us. So I am a partner in a national law firm, and so we have offices in all 50 states. I do healthcare, employment, transactional, and also defense litigation, and help MedSpas get up and running, file the corporate documents that they need, do management agreements, and so everything that anybody needs in terms of medical spa or doctor's office, I assist in the preparation. But also I do have partners in all 50 states. And so if I need local counsel for whatever reason, then I have partners that I work with to provide the service. And so one of the major things that we have been working on is obviously this, the coronavirus and the legislation that keeps coming out and changing every single day. So we have a business and financial department, and employment practices department, healthcare department. And so we've been going through all the regulations as they come out so that we could at least provide guidance throughout the 50 states to, to people to see, well, what are the options and the choices and what would be the best or better benefit to the employer and to the employees. So it's been extremely busy. And I just want to give another caution that because the regulations are changing every day, it's really important to have these webinars frequently because we can then at least provide updates with regard to the different changes. And Christine could back me on this, that we were just talking that you know, I think it was last week, they had a Q&A on the Department of Labor that was about 20 questions. And as of last night, there was about 59 questions and answers. So we're trying to stay on the forefront of this so that we can provide any information to help you make a better choice and get through this.
Thank you. Well, it's great to have you. And again, thank you for taking the time to be with us. And one more thing though, Allyson and I actually been working together, same as Chris, for a long time. And we created this product actually for MedSpas because she does focus a lot on MedSpas. We did the Protect Your Business medical spa product where you have all the consent forms and protocols and stuff like that. So she's very active in the medical spa arena. And I know we have a lot of people here that some of them were actually in the middle of starting a business. So if you need any help with that, Allyson is definitely the person to reach out to. So thank you again for being here, Allyson. Chris?
You're welcome.
And Dori, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be presenting with Allyson as well. I am Florida-based, and I focus a lot on smaller environments. So a lot of my clients have, 10 or less employees, 20 or less employees. And this has been a panic moment for them of, what do you mean this applies to me? Because most of the time when you have 10 or less, nothing applies to you, except for a local ordinance or two. So I've been really working on trying to keep my smaller clients informed of the law, the impacts on them, the decisions they can make that not only keep the business afloat, but treat the employees who work so hard at keeping them in business, keeping their doors open and providing outstanding services. So it's always that balance and always that mix. And as Allyson said and Dori said, I mean, literally it's changing constantly. We aren't getting much sleep, as I'm sure many of you aren't as well, because these changes impact you. You're the ones who are making the financial decisions. We're the ones providing the advice. And so one of the things I do need to make clear, and that is nothing we're saying today should be taken as legal advice. The bars actually tell us we should tell you that. And you should always consult your own employment counsel to make sure that what you're doing is compliant with perhaps any local ordinance. Because like I said, most of the time, if you have 15 or less, the federal and state discrimination laws will apply to you. But Florida has lots of little cities, counties, municipalities that have their own ordinances that impact people between 6 and 14. So there's a lot that's happening. There's a lot to keep up with. And the fact that you're on this webinar shows you're already being proactive and want to stay informed. So we appreciate you attending.
Yeah, wonderful. So just a little bit about me. I think most of the people on here know me, but we literally maxed out the Zoom again with hundreds of people that wanted to know about this. So in case you're not familiar with myself, my whole purpose is to help professionals like yourself structure your business so you are super successful. So we do a lot of educational events, seminars, webinars, coaching, mastermind group. So our whole purpose is to help you set a great solid foundation and become more successful. I do have a brand new book out. If you have not gotten it yet, you should get your hands on it. You can download it for free from my website, inspirationmanagement.com. So with moving on to some of the things that we would like to start the conversation with, I don't know who would like to take this here, but there's been a lot of questions about this particular point, is what is the difference between actual, like an employment classification, whether it's we should furlough our employees, should we terminate them? What is going on with that whole law? What would be the best thing right now for a person to actually do?
Well, I mean, I can start, Christine, if you don't.
That's fine.
So the question about whether or not to furlough or to terminate or to reduce hours is really one that is something that the business has to decide on, how much money they actually have, if they have anything coming in, and how much they have in the future. So if they have some sort of like a cushion, then it's a little bit easier to make the determination as to what you should do with your employees. But if you terminate an employee, that means that's just what the classic meaning is. You terminate them. They are not entitled to any of the sick leave benefits that the government is providing. If you furlough somebody, that means they're still on your payroll. They're just not getting paid. They're not terminated. And the way that impacts what the Coronavirus Act is that those people would still be entitled to receiving the benefits from the stimulus, right? So Before April 1st, we were telling people that it might be better for you to actually just terminate, because then the employee is able to go ahead and go and get unemployment benefits right away. They don't have the lag time to, that have to wait. Usually it was a 7-day period. But now that the circumstances are changing, and we'll get into that in a little bit in terms of what the actual stimulus package is for employers, then the decision whether or not you actually want to terminate somebody or just furlough them is going to be something that really takes a lot of consideration and analysis for each individual's business, which is what we've been trying to help them with. Mm-hmm. I don't know, Chris, if you have something else.
Can I have a backup question to that? Can you do a furlough, but not necessarily with the original amount that they were getting paid? So can you reduce it and still furlough to help with that cash flow management?
Well, if they're furloughed, that means they're not getting paid. That means they're still employed, but they're not getting paid. So you can reduce somebody's hours and keep them on as an employee and pay them a lesser amount of money, because you can certainly do that, but that would mean that they're not being furloughed any longer. Okay.
So furlough means not paying at all. They're just still employed, but they're not getting paid.
Correct, but they are still entitled to any benefits that you were providing to them while they were working as in the normal course of business. So if you pay them, health benefits or pension benefits or whatever benefits it is that you were providing to them, they're still entitled to those payments. They're just not getting payroll paid.
Okay, so to answer my question though, then maybe in a different way, what about if I don't want to terminate, I don't want to furlough, but I want to keep them on, but pay them a little bit less than the regular payroll that you usually have? How would that work?
So you would just send them a notice of change in classification or change in reduced hours or change in reduced pay. You want to provide notice for that and then pay them the lesser amount of money during the time that this is going on.
Okay. All right.
And so I do want to add that in the frequently asked questions by the Department of Labor, they've added number 26, that if your employer is still open and furloughs the employee on or after April 1st, can I receive paid sick leave or expanded family medical leave act? And they said no. And that's number 26.
So those are the things that you have to really look at and make sure that you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Excuse me, my voice, I've been talking too much.
Yeah, as we all have. So again, you really do need to focus on if you're closed, if you plan on having a reopen date. For instance, a lot of my clients have been asking, as I'm sure Allyson yours have too, that what's the benefit to me to furlough someone? And part of what I've been saying is if you want a workforce that you want to be able to activate, if you want to be able to say in 2 weeks, okay, Governor DeSantis has lifted the executive order, you can come back to work. That's why you want to furlough people, is they're still on your payroll, mm-hmm. but at the same time, you're not paying them. But when you terminate someone, you can't just call them up and say, be at work tomorrow, because they're not on your payroll, they're not your employee anymore.
Right. Can they be on furlough and still collect unemployment?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what the Department of Labor is saying in the frequently asked questions, is that they're on furlough, they're having the terms and conditions of their employment substantially and materially changed. They have no hours. And so they are going to be eligible for the federal benefits. Now, state benefits, that's state by state. And so, Allyson and her team will probably have some insight in the state by state basis. But from what we're reading in the frequently asked questions, and for what is still unknown under the CARE Act, on that $600 supplement a person, how people get that. But it does seem to be that if they're furloughed, they have zero income coming in and they would be eligible for unemployment benefits.
Okay.
And I think then, the decision has to be made if you're not providing employees with benefits anyway, in terms of, like pensions or any other type of benefit.
Or medical insurance, right?
Right. Then it may not be, detrimental to you to keep them on as employees because you're not really paying out anything above and beyond what the government provide.
So to me, from a business standpoint, just to help everybody on the business side of this, so really that question is determined by how much cash flow you really have. What are your reserves? How much can you really give to your employees and still be afloat for at least, let's say, a month or 2 months? And that should really be their deciding factor.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Family First Response Act with the family sick leave and all that. Are there any proof that they have to show you if they are truly sick? Is that something that you can actually ask from people to show you that they have the coronavirus, and then all these benefits or laws kick in regarding the paid sick leave?
I don't see anything in any of the act that requires someone to give a doctor's note to say that they have it, and you don't even have to have it in order to be able to take that sick leave. The only guidance that I did see recently with regard to taking off because of the child care is that you could request documentation that the child's school was closed, or that you had to take off of work because the child's school was closed. And that's the only documentation that I've seen in the act.
So as an employer, then somebody can just call up and say, oh, I don't feel good, I'm sick. And then they can just stay home and get the benefits of sick leave?
It's from my understanding, yes.
And part of what we're seeing too is hoping to get a little bit more guidance from that on Department of Labor. At the same time as, we had in Florida when Governor DeSantis said schools are closed until April 15th. His answer was, and what more do you need to know? I have closed the schools. There's an executive order. I've had a press conference. What proof do you need that the school is closed? The problem becomes the daycare and the notion of, well, how do I know the daycare provider is unavailable due to COVID? Because some centers are closing because they've had cases. Some centers are closing out of precautionary measures. And so is that due to COVID? Most likely, yes. But how are you going to get a letter from a closed daycare center telling you, well, we're closed because of COVID? That's probably not going to happen. At the same time, what we're also having to make case-by-case decisions on is this notion of my employee says that they're afraid, that they don't want to come to work, that they prefer to stay home. Well, good luck in getting a doctor to see you on precautionary sort of issues, because remember, in Florida, non-essential medical is closed. Governor DeSantis closed it with a scheduled reopen date of May 8th because he tied it back to the original order. So when you look at that, well, family medicine, although I certainly would consider it essential, a lot of doctors have closed as a precautionary measure. So how are you going to get that doctor's note for people who cannot get in to see their doctor, and for the doctors that are open who are swamped beyond words and really don't want to spend time filling out a piece of paper for your employees?
Right.
And so
let's talk a little bit about this. I've had literally hundreds of questions about this, the stimulus package, as far as an employer and what can you do to really get those loans going so you can actually pay your team. And a lot of the questions that I've been getting is, well, if you can't, the employees have to be employed and you have to be paying them for you as a business owner to qualify for some of these loans. You want to elaborate on exactly what are their guidelines of, as an employer, what can you do to really apply for that loan? And then how is that, how does it work? Do they have to be employees still, or can they be on furlough, or can they be terminated for you to qualify for that business loan? It's like such a mess. I don't
And
can you even answer that question?
and the answer to that question is, Dori, as you just said, it's such a mess.
Yeah.
And what, again, this act just came out, the CARE Act just came out Friday afternoon. What is it, 800 plus pages?
Yeah.
So
that's all?
That's all.
So Dori,
Family's First Act was 110 and we thought that was bad. But with 800 pages, people are still digesting it. And I'm starting to get the notices, I'm sure a lot of people on this call are, from their CPAs, from their tax advisors, from a lot of the law firms out there who are doing good work, as well as the fact that there are just private bankers who've now been enabled under the Act to be able to assist some of their clients, where usually they couldn't deal with small business loans and things like that, that I've heard that they have the ability to assist, and they're jumping in and saying, how can we help you? But it is truly going to be a case by case sort of process, because you may be eligible for this, but not that. It's a very hard decision to make on some of the criteria regarding maintaining a percentage of your workforce, how long you need to maintain them, how much you need to pay them, because from what I read, it's you need to keep them at least 75% of their wages. Some of that relief may be more of a problem for a medium-sized employer, because they've got enough capital to keep them going, but not necessarily enough capital to pay that percentage of their workforce, 75% of their wages over a period of time. And so these are decisions where, again, get in touch with your CPA, get in touch with your tax advisor, make sure your employment lawyer is in the loop, because if you're going to talk about bringing people back who are on furlough, you're going to talk about whether you need to necessarily keep people continued to be on furlough because you're not going to qualify based on start and end date. It's a mess, Dori.
I mean, I know that we ended up, Dori, I had sent to you something earlier, and I don't know if you were able to put this onto a PowerPoint or not, or you just, we're just doing like this Q&A. But my firm did a really good analysis in terms of what the stimulus package is as it stands today, and what you can expect. And so one of the reasons why, the question has been coming out about whether or not you need to keep these your employees employed in order to get the relief and to apply for this loan is because they're trying to make it an incentive to you in order to be able to keep people employed. That's why you're getting a better benefit if you do have people on your payroll and you're trying to keep your business open. Mm-hmm. So, according to what we have reviewed, you can apply for the loan. There are certain financial institutions that have signed up in order to be able to provide these loans. I don't think it's very limited. I mean, I think there were about 70. And so there is the link that you can go on that tells you what banks or financial institutions are joining in on, with the government to provide these loans. And they have to make a decision within a 60-day time period. So it's, it's not as lengthy of a time to wait that you would expect on some of these other SBA loans. So they are trying to make it more available to people right away. But then again, these loans are meant for the purpose of keeping your payroll intact. Some of it will help to go and pay the rent, but it's still then going to be a choice about whether or not do you really think your business is going to be viable even after this is over, because by that time, have you lost, patients? Have they, decided to do something else? Are people going to have the flexible income after this is all over to then go ahead and do those services that we usually treat as, fluff? I don't actually, that it's a necessity, but so that is, but Dori, if you could.
I'll include it in the email to everybody.
Okay, yeah, because it really does contain a lot of good information about what the stimulus package is and how to go about and get those loans. And, unfortunately, I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it gives you all of the links that you need as well to access the information and the loan applications as well.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and include that. Thank you for sharing that with me.
And Allyson, one of the other things, and I'm sure your summary has this, is the notion of what happens if the forgiveness doesn't come through for that particular client, because everyone's assuming these are all going to be forgivable loans that they're going to go away.
Right.
And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. That's the thing.
And it's based on eligibility criteria. I have several clients who no doubt are going to be down 40% of their revenue for a period of time, but not 50.
Yeah.
And that's part of the issue of it's supposed to be, I think, at 50% of your revenue from last year to this. And that's going to continue to be sort of the, well, do I take the loan when I may or may not qualify for it? And I'm sort of the belief, well, if you give it back, so be it.
Well, I think the situation that most people are probably thinking about is, okay, let's say I own the MedSpa or a spa. and I'm applying for this loan. I bring all my employees on, I'm paying out all this money. A month goes by, another month goes by, I still don't have my loan. Now I'm in crunch with my cash flow. It's like, how are they going to be able to deal with that? So that's the biggest thing that is on my mind. How quickly can they really be providing these loans to people so they can float all this payroll all this time?
Well, I mean, I think that is the scary thing about it, because although, the words seem to be really great and enticing for employers to take advantage of, in reality, how is it really going to take effect? And how much money are they going to really provide to people? There are going to be deferments. You can request a deferment up to 6 months, I think up to a year, if you're not able to pay back the loan, because the business is just failing. But ultimately, and then there is going to be some loan forgiveness. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think that if people are unable to pay their loans back, you're still going to be responsible for repayment. And so what do what's the worst of two evils, right?
Yeah. So here's a question. This is an actual situation. So this is one of my clients actually sent in this question, Beth. She's in Colorado, and they were mandated by the state to close on March 17th. So her question is, if I pay my employees on March 16th through the 31st, will I be reimbursed the full amount of my payroll taxes in the future? So that's the first part of the question. And then she said, can I include their total average wages? This would include tips and commissions. Should I make the check date April 2nd? Or does this really make a difference? Like, where does she go from here?
I don't think it makes a difference in terms of what date the check is dated. And from what I understand, they are looking to give back the tax credit for on payroll. Whether or not that's going to be reimbursed at the full amount or not, I don't know. I tend to doubt it, but I don't know, Chris, if you know anything different.
I don't, because again, this is dealing with Families First Act is not in effect until April 1st. So there's no credit available to you for this in any way under the Families First Act. So the only credit you could get would be through any of these particular loans or other grants and programs, which some of which I understand, Allyson, are retroactive back to February.
Right.
As far as looking at payroll and what you maintained. So the fact that, prior to March 17th, you were maintaining payroll, there should be some opportunities for you to be able to get some advantage due to that. And again, when you look at the guidance under Department of Labor as to what it is that counts as total wages, when you're not talking Families First Act, where they don't necessarily involve tips and commissions, but overtime, I think there should be a difference in regular CARE Act under the tax law. But I think that's still unfolding. Allyson, do you?
Since the law doesn't come good until April 1st, so can she still apply to get reimbursed for this since it all happened in March?
But that's Families First Act is April 1st.
Oh, okay.
That's the different coronavirus relief where you get the 2 weeks of paid sick leave and up to 12 weeks total of paid leave under the Emergency Family Medical Leave Act section. This section is probably going to be dealing, Allyson, I think, with the CARE Act, which is giving you some form of tax credit, some form of forgiveness for having kept people at least 75% of their salary for a specified period of time that's in the particular loans and things like that. Because there's various forms of relief, some of which people will be eligible for, some of which they won't. Mm-hmm. And so having a chance to look at, a fairly in-depth summary that Dori's going to be emailing us from Allyson's group will be helpful. And I'm still a believer of sort of you throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. If you get it and you don't use it, then give it back.
Yeah. And the SBA loans are for any like payroll or any other deficits that you've had in your business from February 15th to 2020. So that would be one benefit. So even though this didn't really start until, sometime in March, people were, I guess, being impacted before that period of time. So the cutoff is the February 15th date.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is an interesting question. All her employees except for one chose to file unemployment. So for the one that did not file unemployment, can she pay her under the FMLA guidelines and be reimbursed for the wages?
I think that would depend on the reason that they are unemployed. Because remember, the Families First Act takes effect on April Fool's Day, April 1st. So there's no requirement to follow the law. It isn't a law yet. So when we look at paid under the FMLA guidelines, where you pay them, if it's to take care of a child, 2/3 of their wages for the first 2 weeks under the emergency paid sick leave portion, for which then they'd have an additional 10 months available to them of 2/3 of their wages if it's because they're taking care of a child whose school is closed or the daycare center is unavailable due to COVID. So if it's just to be nice, you're not going to be covered by that act, and you won't necessarily get the dollar for dollar payroll credit that's being offered for employers who are paying under the Families First Act.
It's so complicated.
We know.
That's why they need you
We
guys.
know.
I need to just say, okay, take care of it for me. Tell me what to do.
Yeah. And this is one where even as you know, the lawyers usually do like to give advice that we feel very comfortable with and go, yes, this is what the law says. And we're still having those moments of, is this really what the law says?
No,
Okay,
you know,
how many different loans are available to us now? Like as a business owner, I'm getting confused with how many different things they're offering now. So can you clarify that for us? So we have the disaster relief, right?
right, and then the Coronavirus Act relief and Economic Security Act. That's the other stimulus that they have.
Okay, so as a MedSpa owner, what would be like the first and the most important loan to go and take care of right now? Is it the disaster one?
Well, the disaster one is the one that's going to be able to give you some funding in order to pay off the sick leave, because that comes from the employer. So that's not federal monies that are right. You know, there's no bank full of federal money to pay your employees, paid sick leave. So, you know, if you're going to keep people on and you don't have the funding in order to pay the sick leave that you're going to be required to do, then yes, that would be the first one that you would want to go for. But that's only going to get you, you know, through a very short term period. So you would have to, I think, almost like simultaneously go for the VA loan, you know, because that's going to take, you know, up to 60 days as well. So
yeah, well, that's the thing, it's the time consuming period that it would take. I'm going to take some questions from our audience.
I think, you know, one of the things too that I've been getting a lot of calls is that people are actually trying to, you know, connect with one of these financial institutions, but the lines are off the hook. So it's very difficult to actually get through to anybody at this point. I mean, hopefully within, you know, the near future, it will lessen a bit, but you know, there's so many people that are in the same boat that it's very difficult.
And
I have a question here.
Particularly, the unemployment system is crashing constantly because so many people are using it, and frankly, it wasn't well built. And they've been trying to deal with that for some time, and that was before tens of thousands of people started using it. My clients who've been applying for the loans, the disaster loans, things like that, and reaching out to their private bankers, they're like, in the middle of the application, it's crashing on them.
Right.
Which of course makes everybody cry because
I had one of
not a simple application.
We had a tip from one of our mastermind members today. We were doing our Brewing Brilliance call, and she said not to use Google, to go use Bing or some other search engine because it has less traffic on it, and she was able to get through the application in 1 hour without crashing.
Wow.
Good tip for everybody. That's from Tracy Allman, one of our members. Shout out for you, Tracy, if you're on with us. All right, I have a question here from Julianne, and she's asking, how about the exemption for business less than 50 employees for the FMLA relief?
Yeah, so I've been getting a lot of questions about this exemption with regard to the 50 employees or less, and that really is only relative to the child care issue. So if you're taking off time because of your child's daycare or the school is closed, then that you may be eligible for an exemption under that, but that does not exempt you from having to pay the actual the sick time for that employee taking off because they're sick.
Mm-hmm.
Only relative to the child care issue.
Okay.
And they just recently clarified that, so I think that was helpful. They gave us the barest of guidance over on the recent DOL, where they added a few of the things to get us into the high 50s, where they gave some key points of what people need to do to start documenting how and why they believe that they will be exempt from having to provide those benefits. And
is there an age limit for the child?
18 or under.
18.
But, yes, but they still said that some of the FMLA guidelines regarding having to take care of a special needs child, a dependent child, could apply. But you said 18 or under, so yet again, we're always evolving.
I definitely echo her feelings on this. I even asked the question earlier. This is Donna. She's another mastermind member of ours. She's asking, I thought that under the leave, they had to either have COVID or be taking care of someone with the COVID disease or at high risk and be recommended by a doctor. Why would anyone want to work if they could stay home and get benefit? That's exactly what I was asking you earlier. It's like, how do we know if they really are sick or not? They're just gonna stay home and not work. They don't have to provide me with anything as an employer.
No, there is criteria in the guidance now that there's bullet points that say that they have to be I think they have to be employed for more than 30 days before this happened. And also that they have to be taking care of a situation because the child's school was closed. And then they do have the setting. I wish you could bring up the stuff that I have. Are you able to do that?
Yeah, I might be able to. I'll look at it in just a second and bring
okay.
it up. Yeah. So, all right. I have another question here from Caroline. What do you do if an employee hasn't wanted to come in and filed unemployment? Where does that put me as an employer? And we're still open for business. They haven't been asked to close. So what do you do if somebody just, I don't want to come to work?
Well, there's a couple of things that I've been hearing. At least this is different from dealing with Department of Labor. It's dealing with EEOC sort of issues. That's Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, that deals with discrimination, harassment, retaliation. Although there's nothing that requires you to comply with an employee's request that has no medical need or to stay home, you have to look at it and say people are scared, people are panicked. They're really worried. A lot of people who live with elderly parents to provide them with care and support are really worried because they're like, my mom's 82. I don't want to expose her. She's in a vulnerable position. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times I say, look at what your policies currently say. You have a policy in place that says they're not supposed to be taking leave without permission. They stop coming to work. Well, as I said, they have voluntarily abandoned their position. But a lot of people are taking a softer approach and going, okay, I can live without you for a week, but after that, I need you to come to work. Mm-hmm. So if the employee chooses not to come to work and you have work available, they're not necessarily going to be eligible for unemployment benefits. Mm-hmm. Now, at the same time, I'm still waiting to see how the federal government's going to necessarily look at that with the extended benefit, mm-hmm. in that if someone says, well, I was afraid because I live in a high-risk family, severe asthma, and again, in Florida, with Governor DeSantis issuing an order saying if you're in a vulnerable population, you shouldn't engage in any activities with mm-hmm. people. People are going to then rely on that and say, well, I read that, I abided by it, my employer fired me over it. So really, even though, again, I should have come to work, I think I had good cause to stay home. And will they necessarily get benefits?
Yeah.
The $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting how that plays out, because right now, technically they wouldn't be entitled to the paid sick leave, and they wouldn't be entitled to the unemployment benefits if they just decide not to come in because they're just afraid. It's just not a qualifying event to get you any of these benefits. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what is the government going to do? They're going to say, okay, well, yeah, you were justified in not coming in because you were afraid. We're going to have to see how that plays out, I think.
Have they discussed at all how the unemployment is going to affect employers? Like, is that going to make my unemployment rate go up like crazy, or are they going to forgive all the people that apply for unemployment during this period?
They've talked about that a little bit, saying that there should be some relief for employers because, they keep using the word unprecedented, and truly it is with the amount of people. I mean, I know we've got a lot of people on the phone who are closed because their governors closed them, their municipalities closed them. But think about the hospitality industry where dining rooms are closed, and places like Seattle have closed them for weeks. California's closed them for weeks. So you look at the fact that you've got 90%, 90% of the hospitality industry terminated or furloughed. What are they going to do? And you're dealing with, the chains as well. So I have to believe at some point there's going to be some relief for employers, whether it's going to be through federal mandate or whether it's going to be state by state. But this is truly a crisis that they just don't begin to know how to. I feel like it's the little kid at the dike with his thumb in it.
It's just going to keep unfolding.
Yeah. And so I do want to go back to one thing, and Dori, this is something you can probably speak to, is when you're looking at employees who are afraid, and you've got loyal employees, people who've done right by you and who are usually very responsive to your needs and wants. It's a good idea to have that long conversation with them to talk about, well, what can I do to make you feel more comfortable? Because when that employee leaves you, they're not going to want to come back to you if they don't feel heard. So I know right now there's a lot of monetary considerations to take into play, but you're on this call because you already believe in being better and being proactive and making sure you're doing the right thing. But Dori, I think this really does come down to, how do you manage your employees?
Exactly. Yeah. And those are the things that we're talking to our mastermind members that are really engaged right now, want to find the best solutions for their employees. I mean, if you sit down and really talk with people and be transparent and tell them exactly what the situation is, and if you've taken care of them all this time and they're loyal employees, you guys together, they can come up with a plan that would be beneficial for both. Because if the company cannot afford to keep people on, they're not going to be able to afford to bring them back on when the time comes. So there has to be clear understanding between everybody as to what is best for them. I need it as an electronic version, not as this. Okay.
Well, and I think one of the other things that's coming up a lot is my employee wants to wear a mask. And even though, again, OSHA doesn't say it's required, as for your receptionist or your bookkeeper, and of course the CDC is saying, no, it's not necessary. And by the way, please conserve them for the people who really need them on the front lines. We have a lot of people now coming in with some pretty fancy homemade masks of, interesting fabric and colorful fabric, and they want to wear them. Right. And a lot of people get nervous about that because if it's a customer facing position, they worry that the notion is going to be, well, do you have something? Why are you wearing a mask?
Yeah.
As compared to a precautionary measure. So I'm getting a lot of questions about that.
Yeah.
Or, again, a lot of the MedSpas are closed in Florida, not all of them, but a lot of my spas and salons are asking, well, what about masks? Yeah. And so I think that's also going to be a huge issue as we move forward in the world of unemployment, and we move forward, and how can you accommodate an employee, or at what point you say, I won't be able to accommodate you.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised though at this point in time where people would be hesitant to go into somewhere where they were wearing masks, or have, if a client came in wearing a mask, because I mean, if you just look around the world, in the streets going, food shopping, everybody's wearing a mask. And so, I mean, realistically speaking, One of the things that we were contemplating is, are there going to be lawsuits because employers did not properly protect third parties coming into their business? And so if you know that there is some virus going on, right, like that's happening right now, don't you have a responsibility to make sure that you are properly protected, and all of your clients are properly protected? So, I mean, I would say everybody should be wearing a mask if you come into close contact with somebody.
I think that's a good thing myself, but yeah. So we talked about this a little bit with the loans being forgiven. Now, can they be forgiven though if you did get some people to go on unemployment and you still had some people that are actually working? Do you know what the rules are for that?
There's going to be, I think, a certain percentage, right? As we said before, that you're keeping a certain percentage of your workforce, and I'm not sure if that's actually solidified at this point. But irrespective of that, there's going to be some loan forgiveness, but it's not the total loan. The loan forgiveness is going to relate to only certain payments that you're making. So, for instance, like rent, payroll, some mortgage obligations, and additional wages like tips and the like. But it's not the entire loan that's going to be forgiven.
I see.
They are going to guarantee it, I think, up to a 10-year period where that's where the maturity is going to be. I think people are under the false impression that the entire amount of the loan is going to be forgiven, and it's not. I think the amount of the interest is 4%. That the loans are going to be, and then it depends on how much you borrow. So what I had sent earlier was it's 5% for loans of not more than $350, 3% for loans of more than $350, and 1% of loans of less than $2 million. So yeah, I mean there is, like I said, I mean there is guidance. We prepared a really great synopsis of what is to come from right now, whether these are going to change, because I don't think everything has been actually finalized right now. But Dori will send to everybody the information that I had sent, which will give you a small
I'm gonna stop sharing.
Layman's terms, really.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing and see if I can pull it up so that way I can show it. But
yeah, because I mean, it'll tell you if what happens if you default, and I'm sorry, unfortunately, I don't have two computers, which I usually do. I'll go back and forth to get you the information, which is why I hate working from home, because ordinarily I have two computer screens, which I never, like, who thought you would need two screens, right?
no.
And that's part of it. Again, I think we've all been occasionally glancing down. We're not checking email. We're looking for our sources.
Yeah. No, because it's a lot, and yeah,
it is a lot.
All right.
Again, not for lawyers, let alone those of you on the phone going, I'm not reading 800 plus pages of the CARE Act to figure some of this out on my own.
Yeah, so this story is with regard to the sick leave and telecommuting and the differences and what leave of absence.
Right one?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all right.
All right. Well, that's why I wanted you to just pull it up in the presentation.
Yeah, sorry all, but what we're trying to do is give you the most up to date and as accurate information as we can.
Where's the other one?
This one.
Huh? Where?
Dori, I'm going to email it to you again.
Okay. Okay, I have it now.
Okay.
All right, let me just share
And
it.
this is just good for whoever is in attendance right now, because do a screenshot of it or whatever it is, and then this way you can read it at your leisure. But just at least so that you have the information.
Well, we'll send it, like I said, also in email. So
Yeah.
it gives you all the changes in the workforce, and it has the information about the furlough, the layoff and terminations, the reduction in pay. So they have all this work from home guidelines. So it's very detailed with a lot of great information. So I'll make sure to to definitely send it.
Yeah, but there's actually another one that I'm referring to, and that has to do specifically to the loans. So I just emailed it to you again.
Okay, great. So there's a lot of good information that we can definitely follow up with and make sure that you guys have it, because there's just so many questions. Really, so many people are at a loss and they don't really know what to do. My main thing is to try to help them navigate through this whole process. So as far as if you were to give some advice right now to some people, what would be like, if we were to pick like 3 steps they should take, what would those like 3 steps be? To protect themselves, protect their business, protect their employees? What would be like a general thing to do?
I mean, look, I think that the initial analysis has to be where were you in terms of business wise before this happened? How much income were you receiving? Were you, really just sort of struggling? Did you have a cushion? Did you expect that your business was going to, flourish? Were you on a downturn? And then you can then at least say like, okay, what am I really thinking about where my business is going to go from here? And if you really do think that your business is going to rebound after this, then I think that one of the better things would be to get the loans. Because in this way, you'll at least have some protection. You'll have some benefits. No, everything is not going to be forgiven, and you will have to repay back, whatever percentage it is that they ultimately give you. But at least it'll keep your business afloat, and it will help you to pay rent and the other things that you need to pay. And, since there are certain benefits to your employees at this point too, if they are on furlough or they have reduced hours and they are still able to collect unemployment, then it's sort of like no harm, no foul. You'll be able to, get through this. Hopefully it will be sooner rather than later. Mm-hmm. But if you really are contemplating that, maybe this is a good time to close up shop, then this would then be a good time. Your employees will get the unemployment benefits and any other stimulus benefits that they could get. And, we've been looking at certain clauses too in lease agreements. So there's force majeure clauses where, can I get out of my lease payment because of what's happening here? Do I go file for bankruptcy? So I don't think there really isn't one set answer to anything at this point, especially while everything is still, is in the works, and there isn't final guidance for everything. But, talk to your lawyer, talk to your accountant, talk to, people who are going to be able to give you some advice based on your own particular business, because it's not a one size fits all approach at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think they should at least go fill out information to apply for these loans. I mean, that would be, they have nothing to lose to apply for those, right?
Right. Right. And there is no, I think like all of the application fees and everything else is all waived. So it doesn't cost you anything to apply.
Yeah. So.
And again,
okay, I think we already answered this question. Go ahead, Chris.
No, but I think that's part of it, is making sure that as all of these different acts and forms of relief are out there for both you and your employees, is reaching out to the professionals, trying to get a hold of people to say, if I choose this option, what happens to me on that option? Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times you may think, oh, this will be great, this is a good option for me. And then you look at it and go, but I have to go into debt to pay my staff. And then I'm going to be in the middle of summer and I'm in a seasonal environment where half my people, my snowbirds, are going to be home anyway. Is that necessarily the right choice for you, simply because there may be loan forgiveness for you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this question came out today from our meeting that I had earlier. We have some people, let's say they're collecting unemployment. You have a team that's collecting unemployment, but then we want them to come and do some consultations from home. Can they still get their unemployment, and can I still pay them for just doing that consultation, online consultation, or would that stop them from getting an unemployment? Can they get both is the question.
I think there was there was a provision that if you were getting reduced hours, you would still be able to get some unemployment. So I think this would fall under that category, that with a reduction in hours, but Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't.
Yeah, and that's part of what I've read is that if you have some hours, your state will provide you with benefits based on what hours you had. And then the federal government up to $600 amount will kick in as well. Because the federal government $600 applies to people seeking part-time work. So if you have someone who is working for you for consults or whatever reason, a lot of my clients are looking at this and going, let's clean out files. Let's go in and do some of the projects.
I'm teaching them how to make money. We're not going to just clean files, Chris. Come on.
No, but
I just want to share with you one success story. This is from our morning call, our Brewing Brilliance Mastermind call. One of our members, Madeline, who is doing online consultations. And last week, she generated over $7,000 just doing consultations online. That's what we're all about, is that even though you might be closed or not working or this or that, well, we have a lot of people that are still working, and we're finding ways how they can generate revenue online so they can keep them afloat. So Madeline shared with the group this morning that at the end of the month, even with the whole situation, they've been closed for almost 3 weeks. She still did a little bit more than break even this month. That's amazing. And being closed.
Well,
so those are the kind of things we really want people to be doing. Don't just get so down that you're not going to be able to make money. There are ways to still make money and stay afloat. So
and the employee is supposed to disclose that if they're used to making $1,000 a week and they made 200, they are still required to disclose that to their unemployment division in both the state and federal systems, from what I understand, and that will impact the amount of benefits they get. For example, in Florida, even some of the part-time folks who are applying for benefits aren't getting them because their answer is, well, you're still exceeding what we would have given you. But that doesn't mean that the federal stimulus won't necessarily kick in.
Right. Okay. So this is a good question. Can a sole proprietor collect unemployment?
And so I can tell you in Florida, one of the questions that's asked is, are you an officer of the company? If the answer is yes, then no, you don't get to collect Florida unemployment. However, we still don't know on the federal level. So we're still waiting for a little guidance in Florida on whether go ahead and apply, go ahead and check, yes, I'm an officer, go ahead and be denied, and then apply for the federal, or if there's going to be a different way to apply for the federal.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did see some information with on the federal side where it said that if you're self-employed, that you may be entitled to the unemployment benefits as well. So we're going to have to wait to see how that's going to pan out. So. But in New York is the same thing. If you're an officer of a company, you're not entitled to unemployment.
So I have somebody asking, Christine, she's like, how is that happening that she made $7,000 with online consultations? You have to be a member and find out how. Thank you, Christine. You should call one of my team members. We can teach you how. Oh my gosh. Okay, I haven't even want to see if we answered some of these questions. I'm going to go into some of our questions that were sent in. This, which one? Which one? Oh, what about it? We already answered them. We just did. Okay, she's not paying attention to us. Okay, I have a question here from Susan. She said, thank you so much for doing this for all of us. My pleasure. I'm a small business and have less than 5 employees. I already terminated on my team as of March 17th. We are in Northern California and have been closed since March 17th. We use the word team. My team is not full-time. What is the best for my small business?
In terms of what?
Yeah, I'm not clear on what she really, so she basically let everybody go. She terminated everybody, and now she's not doing anything. I would just apply for the loan right now, Susan. That's what I would do if I were you. Or rehire them and let them do some online consultations for you so you can have some money coming in.
But, so you're entitled to the loan even, once it's effective, if you rehire people. So just because you have terminated them, effectively whatever date that was, you can still rehire and be eligible for the loan.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we were discussing earlier, just because they are still employed technically, but they're not getting a payroll, they can still collect the unemployment. So that would probably be, like Dori said, your best bet is to, see if you can get the loan from, the SBA. And see if you can, if there's anything you can do to, save your business.
Yeah. So I have another question here from New View, I guess their business name. Would you qualify for the SBA loan if your 2 employees worked only part-time?
I don't think there's any qualification that you have to have employees for a certain amount. Like it's not as if you have to be paying them a certain amount of money or that they have to be on salary. But the amount of loan that you're able to get is based on the income that your business was generating before this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is an interesting question. This is someone who does medical massage for motor vehicle accidents. These people are hurt and want me to continue their therapy. Is there any circumstances where I can continue care in their home? Is there a law against that? Can they go in and actually do treatments at home?
I mean, I don't think that there's a law against it. I mean, it says non-essential businesses cannot be operating, but I can't see why you couldn't go into somebody's home. In fact, I was actually thinking about calling the people who do my eyelashes and see if they would do a home call. This is getting really ridiculous. But I don't think there's actually a law that says that you can't go into somebody's home and provide a service. Not that I've seen anyway.
Yeah.
But I think there still may be some regulations with DBPR of each state as to whether you are actually licensed to go into someone's home.
Yeah.
To perform a business service. But again, I think that's case by case. I know that the places in Florida that have done more shelter in place sort of orders, when you read what Orange County, which involves all of our theme parks in Florida, has as far as their shelter in place, you can drive a Mack truck through all of their exceptions. So I'm looking at it going, so basically the theme parks are closed, the malls are closed, but I don't really see that there's not a way to get around a lot of what they've said. Same time, the notion of, President Trump saying social distancing is the way to go. It's kind of hard to argue that anytime you're going to be 4 inches away from somebody is
and you're rubbing them and you're massaging them. I mean, that's the only thing I see as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So one more thing here. I have been furloughed by my employer. Is there a form I should fill out? So this is actually an employee who was furloughed by an employer. So do they have to do anything or just go and apply for?
They would just go and apply for the unemployment. But we discussed the fact that there's a poster that everybody has to post, all employers have to post. Did we discuss that already?
Yeah.
Okay, so they just came out with a poster where every employer needs to provide this to every employee, whether they've been terminated, furloughed, whatever the case is, you can email it to them. But this is something that is actually federally required that you post it. I have a poster. I can send it to you, Dori, and you can send it out to everybody that's on this call. But you have to do that. In terms of filling out some sort of notification because you're furloughed, I'm not aware of that other than doing your unemployment insurance application.
Okay. I know I want to respect your time, but one more question here. Dermatology, is it considered a necessary practice, a medical necessary practice, you think, dermatologists?
I can tell you.
I would say so.
I would tell you in Florida, most of them are closed because if it's the cosmetic side, they are not doing it. But if it's skin cancer check, things like that, they are. But, that whole notion of in Florida, our executive order saying cosmetic, a lot of people have been concerned, and including the little snippet in the executive order from Governor DeSantis going, if it's a regular follow-up appointment, they should reschedule.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. I agree with you total, Allison, on the MedSpa industry is essential.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm just looking at my roots and going, oh my God, I'm looking at, lack of Botox, all of that sort of
It's
thing.
not going to be good.
It's all going to know each other's real hair color really soon.
Wait,
But,
no, it's going to be okay because your natural beauty is going to.
but
Right, right.
I also go back to this issue of most of our politicians are not doctors. A lot of them are lawyers, but most aren't doctors. And when you're going to argue with the MD as to what's essential, they're usually going to win.
Yeah.
They're usually going to win. But most people are erring on the side of caution and saying, I'm going to do the skin cancer checks. I'm going to do the wound care. I'm going to do the follow-up. I'm going to do the rash burns. Please tell me if you have something you're really concerned about, because to that person, it is urgent. Well, the dermatologist may look at it and go, yeah, not that big of a deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's right, though, because, and it depends on what the state's orders are in terms of, the lockdown. So I know in New York, the medical offices are permitted to be open. Medical spas, no, right? Because you're talking about something that's isn't essential. But medical offices are certainly are able to be open. And yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on what you're going in there for.
So if somebody wants to seek legal advice right now, is this state by state or is it all federal laws who should they seek out help to legally? Like what?
And I still think you've got a lot of state factors involved because, like I said, we've got an executive order in Florida that you don't have in New York, you don't have in North Dakota, California. So the help you're getting is probably going to be somewhat state specific because even beyond state, like I said, municipalities are issuing. Tampa issued a curfew order. Orlando has, like I said, a massive list of all the things that they consider essential and non-essential. Mm-hmm. So I do think even though a lot of this is federal, there's a lot
where can they go to find out this information? Like, is there a public place they can go find out like what's going on state by state by state, or they should just reach out to an attorney and let them guide them through it?
I mean, I think, look, like I said, my firm has been doing this for all 50 states. And so, certainly if somebody has a question, reach out to us and we'll get you as much information as we possibly can. The Department of Labor also has, the websites up. The Family First Coronavirus Act has, they have a website where, Christine, they have like the Q&A. But I think you have to really speak to an attorney. If you're in Florida, speak to Christine. If you're outside of Florida, then, call me and, we'll see what we can do to help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and I have their emails on the slide here. So if you want to take a picture of this slide, and you can reach out to Allyson or to Chris. So Chris obviously is in Florida, you guys. So all of you who are on with us from Florida, feel free to contact her. And then the others, like Allyson said, she has coverage for all different states, and she can help you with that as well. I know we could probably spend another hour, 2 hours talking about this, but I just want to give a couple people things that we did last week that they should go check out. One of the webinars that we did that was very valuable is going over the M.A.P.S system and how to minimize disruptions for your med spas or spas. So that webinar is available for you to go watch online. So feel free to go do it. And then the other thing is we're launching a nonprofit organization called Global Med Spa Association. And it's all designed to unite, educate, and grow everybody's business and help them survive this period that we're going through. And we're offering a complimentary membership. So if they want to go, if you guys want to go and sign up for it, you can. And I'm also putting a lot of webinars on that site as well that are totally open. You can just watch them for free and gain valuable information that you need. And I'm doing another webinar actually on Thursday with Ed Kuhn, who's doing all the insurance coverage for us to go over kind of like what we just did today with Chris and Allyson. And he's gonna go over all the different liability insurance laws, things that are changing, just so you know exactly what to do. And if you guys have more questions that we did not cover, you can always reach out to my team, let them do a session with you, and then we can try to get these answers, or just reach out directly to Miss Allyson and Miss Christine. So any last advice you have for everybody?
No, and Allison, thanks for sending the extra slides. I'm sure it's going to be very beneficial for people to see all the sources in one place as to where they get relief.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And so if you need anything, let me know. We're all a team.
It was always it's always nice seeing both of you. It's fun. And thank you so much for taking the time and helping our community navigate through all this. I'm sure there'll be a lot more questions out of it, but thank you so much for your help.
Okay, thank you guys. Bye. Stay
Stay
safe.
safe. Stay safe.
Don't get any guys. No. All right, you guys.
Right, I'm saying, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.